Amen. Thank you, John. Thank you. Ooh, okay. What a wonderful morning already. Yeah, really wonderful. The band, so good today. Daggum. I don't get a yellow flag for daggum, do I, Rick? That's good? We're in the green? Okay. Working on my language from the stage right now. I got help from a seasoned pastor, so. Real quick, I think it's helpful, especially if you're new with us. I want to reframe for us what we're doing here for just a second, and that'll make sense as we move along. But just kind of follow me. And for the first 3 quarters of this, I really need to stick to my notes pretty securely. I want to get us to a place here, and if I don't stick to my notes, I'll have a bunch of wonderful tangents for you that you may or may not need today. Real quick, Christians are those people. So Christians are not people who have chosen a set of ethics to live by, and they are not a set of people who have chosen a particular ritual among other rituals. And what I mean is we're not a group of people that chose that we were going to choose an ethical system and then go to a building called a church and sing songs and hear a guy talk at them, right? Christianity can get reduced down to that in our culture. So that if you're a Christian, you got to figure out which ethical system do I live by? Do I worship Buddha or do I follow the rules of the Bible? And then if I do decide to follow the rules of the Bible, generally what that means is, well, I'll just go to church and I'll hear a guy talk to me about the Bible. And then that's Christianity, and there we go, and I chose Christianity. I need to reframe that because that's not it, and it can become that if we're not careful. We are those people who have given ourselves completely to another spiritual being, okay? Even that may sound weird to Westerners, but that's what we've done. We've given ourselves to a spiritual being. The name of that spiritual being is Yahweh. It was the name given to Moses. It is this Hebrew word that means I am or existence. We've given ourselves to the spiritual being named Yahweh, who was the God of ancient Israel. Right? He was not the God of the whole world. He was the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Creator of the world, yes. God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the nation of Israel. And his name is Yahweh. There are other nations that have other gods that are, in fact, spiritual beings. Some worship them directly. Some worship them not directly. But there are other spiritual beings who are at work in the world. We do not worship those spiritual beings. We worship Yahweh, who is the creator of all things, and actually the creator of those spiritual beings who don't worship him and who are not good in many cases. And then this Yahweh, God, he took on flesh and became a human being named Jesus, or like we sang today, Yeshua in Hebrew. And he did many miracles. He taught many things. He was also crucified. So God became human, crucified, a gruesome death, didn't stay in the grave, was resurrected, and he showed us who Yahweh is in the most fullest sense, and he also showed us what it meant to be a human being in the fullest sense. He did both of those at the same time, and then bridged the gap for all people. So if you're not Jewish, he bridged the gap for non-Jewish people to worship the Creator once again. That had been cut off for millennia and millennia. It had been restored through Jesus. He also did another thing. He disarmed spiritual beings who use spiritual temptation, and they also use worldly oppression to destroy your life. I'm not going to go too deep in that. You can feel the destruction of your own life through spiritual temptation and worldly oppression if you just give it 5 minutes to think about it. And he has empowered you now to take back your life from that spiritual temptation and worldly corruption, and to live a life according to his way, in responsible obedience to the things that he's given you, and in faithfulness to him. And when I say faithfulness, I don't just mean loyalty. I also mean trust in another spiritual being, so that the day in and day out of your life it'll have aspects of spirituality to it, like prayer, like singing worship, right? Like making decisions as if there is a spiritual being that you've bowed the knee to, not just being a good guy, an American, person who has generally good intentions, right? So I need to cut a line for us, and I do that quite often. Is cut a line so that you can kind of feel where I'm going. All right, that story is profoundly beautiful. That Yahweh, that God, and the way he has expressed himself in Jesus, being so gracious, merciful, slow to anger, overflowing with love, sacrificial love, is a beautiful, beautiful story. It's a beautiful, beautiful reality. It's profoundly wonderful, and it has also been twisted in the way that we talk about him in many cases. So a lot of what I try to do is like untwist that a little bit so you can get a drink of cool water from the actual gospel, the good news of Jesus. That story has also done something to me internally. It's done many things to me internally, but one of the things that it does to me, I get somewhat repulsed when Christians want to use fear of hell to create submission to Jesus. It repulses me a bit. Like, I don't like that. Because the story itself is so profoundly wonderful and beautiful, and that being is so good and so sacrificial and so kind, that when we use fear of burning forever as like the mechanism to get you to submit your life with the reality that much of your life is actually quite difficult, right? Much of your life has like financial worries. It has relational concerns. It has difficulties at work. It has things that seem like they'll never go away that are quite hard for you. I get repulsed when we say, I know life is hard. You might burn forever one day. Therefore, you should submit to Jesus and come to church. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's just something about that. I'm like, gosh, that feels like a really shallow expression of the bigness of this cosmic story. Like, it just feels weird and repulsive. But, however, that repulsion can lead me at times to shave off some of the severity of Jesus' words, because I picked this up along the way. I think I just feel like I need to become Jesus' PR agent or something. You know what I mean? Like, he'll say some things in the Bible, and I'm like, we'll save that for a Bible study. Like, let's not say that from a stage, you know? And so there are two very similar parables, one that's in Matthew and one that's in Luke. It's the parable. It's called the parable of the talents in Matthew. And when we say talent, we don't mean a gift that you have to tap dance or something. We mean it's a unit of measurement of money. It's a currency. And so there's the parable of the talents in Matthew. There's the parable of the minas, or the minas, M-I-N-A-S, not M-I-N-U-S. The parable of the mina, which is also a currency, and that's in Luke. The one in Luke is more severe. And we're going to read it today and have a great... So I said all that to say, I want to take us to the one that's a little more severe today. I think there's something in it for us. I don't want to lose that. And so if you will go on that journey with me, keeping in mind, however, that when you hear the words of severity from Jesus, you understand it in the full context of who he is and what he is doing on the earth and what he has done on the earth, right? So don't just take the word, but consider the whole story, and that's why I wanted to start with that whole story. So Luke 19, and we are going to jump in, and it's going to be beautiful. We're going to start in verse 12, chapter 19. It will be on the screen. A nobleman. Ooh, I'm actually going to wait. I hear y'all. That's like a beautiful sound to me. That ch. People have Bibles and they open them. It's like so good. So good. All right, if you haven't found it yet, then we're going to do some Bible drills in the future. You know, I was raised on the find Jeremiah. Do you know what I mean? A nobleman went into a far country to receive for himself a kingdom, and then he was to return. Calling 10 of his servants, he gave them 10 minas and said to them, engage in business until I come. Real quickly, a minas is 100 drachmas. And since you know what a drachmas is, we're cool. We're going to keep going. Yeah. No, it's 100 days of so imagine a day's wage for a skilled laborer. In that, I mean, let's just for our sake, it's $200 for a day's wage, right? If you're going to go pick up somebody that can kind of generally do something decent, let's say $200 a day. It's 100 days labor. So it's what we would say in my era. That's a grip. Okay, that's a lot of money, right? All right, it's about 20 grand if we're going to put it in, just kind of chop it up that way. I love that you gave me that. Yeah, that's good. That's good. So he gave him 10 minas and said to them, engage in business until I come. Of the 38 parables that we have, 38-ish parables of Jesus, over 16 of them, so a decent majority of them, start with this concept of a master or a lord or a nobleman leaving, and then also not just leaving, but he's leaving something for another group of people, servants in many cases, to steward, to actually do something with. So sometimes it's a vineyard, sometimes it's money, sometimes it's like, go away and then keep this lamp going until I come back. But in 16 out of, so there's so many of these parables where there's a nobleman who leaves and then leaves something of value for somebody else to deal with, where he's like, I've got this valuable thing, I care about it, it's very, very important to me, and now you take care of it, okay, and I'm going. That is in, like I said, 16 parables. So that concept, you need to grab onto it for a minute, because it needs to bring to mind a couple things. The first one being this: you need to be brought back immediately to the creation story that most of you know if you've been around here for a while. That you and that we as human beings, we're not just animals, right? We're not just animals that have developed and we have families and babies and then we die and then that's it. That we are authoritative vice-regents. We're authoritative stewards of this earth. We're authoritative rulers. That God is in the heavens and He does what He pleases, but the earth He has given to the children of men, Psalm 115. Right, Psalm 8, that God created all things, He's full of glory and majesty, and then He crowned humanity with glory and majesty as well, made them a little lower than the heavenly beings, crowned them with honor, and gave them dominion over the earth. So you need to grab that that's part of that creation narrative. That's what you are as a human. If you don't think that Christianity has taught you that, then you need a different Christianity, because that's good, solid, biblical understanding of what a human being is. And so we were made stewards, and the best way to say that in Hebrew is that we've been made sons of the house, right? It's not just that we are taking care of something that really doesn't matter and like, well, I don't have much ownership. The concept is that you're a son of the house, and being a son of the house, you may not have secured everything and bought everything and done all the work to get that thing. There was a creator that did all that, but you're the son of the house, and so you have a degree of ownership over the way this thing goes, right? And so, being a son of the house, I want you to just grab this with me. I want to make some bullet points for you. Understand that in this way, is if you are supposed to make choices that are wise and be diligent in the way that you do a thing, so that your heart, that your mind and your hands are engaged as if you owned the thing, but your heart understands that it's not really yours and it's not yours to possess and control. Does that make sense? So there's a way that you steward it with diligence and wisdom, but that your heart doesn't begin to own it as if you're the only one involved here. Does that make sense? So when we say stewardship, you're a son of the house. You function as a son. You're not just like some slave. You're a son of the house, but you're also recognizing, I want this to go really well because I want to honor my father, but this is not mine to control, and it's not mine to use as I would solely wish, right? And then also the second thing to keep in mind, Jesus tells the stories this way for many reasons, because He will be crucified, He will be resurrected, He will ascend to the right hand of God the Father, and then He will leave, entrusting His kingdom to a group of people called you people, Nacogdoches. Followers of Jesus in Nacogdoches, you've been entrusted with a kingdom. Yeah, you've been entrusted with a valuable thing to God. You've been entrusted with it. And He wants you to engage with it as if you're a son of the house. And I'll say it again because we got, for sure, new people in here. The Bible is going to call you, as a follower of Jesus, a son, even if you're a woman. And the New Testament is also going to call you a bride of Christ, even if you're a man. So just please get over that and stay with me, okay? You're a son with the right of inheritance if you're a woman, and you're a bride of Jesus if you're a man. So just roll with it. Roll with it. Here we are. That's a beautiful thing. That's why we sing to Jesus as if He's beautiful, because we are the bride of Christ, right? Okay, keep going. That's a tangent? Nope. I'm on point. Yeah, I'm watching it. Okay. Okay, so Jesus accomplished the work mentioned earlier, left again. You're not a powerless agent in your life. You are an empowered, servant-made son, and you're expected to take what you've been given and produce a return, produce a kingdom return. That's what's behind the story, that you weren't just given salvation, now go on your merry way, or you weren't just given salvation, now have a good life. You were given salvation and being brought into the family of God and being given a kingdom to steward. You have a responsibility to produce a return on behalf of Jesus, so that when Jesus returns, he looks at the sons of the house and he's like, well done, you've managed creation well. You've not just made wise physical decisions, you've made wise physical decisions because you should, and in those wise physical decisions, you have also made some very faithful spiritual decisions so that you might advance the kingdom of God, so that you might press a thing forward, so that you might do on the earth what Jesus was doing on the earth when he was here, because he empowered the 12 that followed him, and then the 3,000 after that, and then so on and so on and so on until this thing is spread out over the earth, right? So again, this is not just pick the right religion with the right ethical system. This is serve the right spiritual being who loves you and gave his life for you and will cause your life to flourish. When you submit to him, it will cause your life to flourish, but it's not solely to cause your life to flourish, because you've been given a responsibility for a spiritual return, right? So that's where the story's going. So this nobleman goes into a far country, and I'm giving you $20,000 a piece, guys. And he said to him, engage in business until I come back. Like, do something with it. I'm giving you a solid bit of money here. Do something with it. Okay, so first character is the nobleman. Second character is the servants. We're going to a third character. Don't get confused with me in this one. But his citizens hated him, not the servants. There's a third character. His citizens hated him. His citizens hated him. And the citizens sent a delegation after him saying, we don't want you to reign over us. Okay, we introduced the third character, the citizens. They hate the nobleman, and they don't want this nobleman to rule over them. Okay, just so you can understand historical context. The very next story that's going to happen in Luke is Jesus on a donkey riding into Jerusalem, people laying palm branches down in front of him, saying to him, blessed is the one who comes in the name of the Lord, the King of Israel. All of Israel, in the very next story, is going to be saying, we want you as king, we want you as king, we want you as king. And he's telling a story right now saying, they don't want me as king. Because what happens 3 days after that? They nail him to a cross. Those same people. It's not different people. It's not that they came in and grabbed him from the people that really liked him. They wanted him to reign over them as long as he did what they wanted him to do. As long as they brought prosperity, as long as he brought prosperity and secured freedom from the Roman rulers, as long as this guy Jesus did what he was supposed to do in their eyes, they were fine for him to rule. When he does things that are not consistent with what they want, they crucify him, right? Crucified him. So there's a little bit in the story that he's starting to build that in. That there are the Jewish people, and he does not say in this parable that they kind of like him. He says they hate him. And they hate him because he's not going to do for them what they expect. I want to go one step further. There are those, even now, non-Jewish people, who do not want Jesus to rule. Okay, so the parable has its historical application, and then it has its sort of eternal application. There are those who do not want Jesus to rule. And the obvious expression of that is people that have rejected Jesus and Christianity, right? And you can put whatever little tab on them you want, if you watch the news or if you globally, right? You could be people that are pushing some progressive agenda, or you can be like Muslims, or put whatever one on there you want that's obvious, right? Humans who just outright are opposed to Christianity. But what I want you to keep in mind is something real quick. This is the question of rulership, not the question of salvation. There are many Americans who are fine with Jesus saving their soul, but have no desire to let him rule in their life. Does that make sense? So real quick, keep in mind here, just because you were born an American and you try to do the right thing most of the time, that doesn't mean that you want the lordship of Jesus in your life. That would still mean that you hate Jesus in this parable. Again, he's wild, okay? So you might be a good employee and you might be a good dad and you generally might be a good guy or good lady. But if there has never been a moment and if there's never been a continual expression of that moment. So don't stop at the moment. I honestly don't care what you did when you were 11 years old. It's a continual expression. So if there's never been a moment and a continual expression of bowing the knee to Jesus, if there's never been that, and even though you kind of like the idea of Jesus and you're an American and you do good stuff and like you don't like, you don't rob liquor stores and you're not on meth right now. Like, okay, so cool. That's still not submission to Jesus, okay? That's just generally, that's just being a good guy in America. Those are different things. And so Jesus is trying to draw the line for us, right? Like there is a thing that is submission to Jesus where life flourishes, where wounds are healed, where the past is fixed and reconciled, and you move in a sense of empowerment. And then there is not that. And everything that's not that, whether you're talking about robbing liquor stores or whether you're talking about just being a good guy. Now, I agree with you. I would rather you be a good guy than shooting people that work at liquor stores. I would, just generally speaking. One is better than the other. But both are still opposed to the rulership of Jesus, right? Both are still opposed to the rulership. And what I'm trying to get from us, right, is people that are submitted to Jesus. I'm not trying to create a bunch of decent people in here. That would be a waste of time. You can find somebody else to make you Jordan Peterson. He'll make you a decent person. Good guy. I love listening to him. He'll be a decent person, right? But what we're talking about here is submission to Jesus. So, right, and you might be Terrell, that means severe. That like what you're saying is severe. Like why? Because keep in mind, the story is he's looking for people who will produce a return. And I use that language because that's the language of the narrative, but let's say it another way. He's looking for people that will stop the progression of darkness instead of be complicit in the progression of darkness. Does that make sense? So to be concerned about your own life and to be so concerned about your own life that that's all that your wisdom ever gets applied to and that's all that your discipline ever gets applied to is just the servicing of your own life. That's not slowing down the advance of darkness and producing a return on what Jesus is up to in the world. That's just self-care. That's great. You should care for yourself. You should not hate yourself and do things that destroy your life. You shouldn't do that. But again, he's looking for something more than just self-care. He's looking for people that are willing to jump in the fray and let's slow down the way that darkness is invading Nacogdoches, invading our homes, invading our lives, invading, everything. Okay, so then with that framework, let's keep going. Luke 19, verse 15. And when he returned, having received the kingdom, this is the nobleman, character 1, he ordered these servants to whom he had given the money to be called to him, that he might know what they had gained by doing business. And the first came before him, saying, Lord, your mina has made 10 minas more. And I'm not great at math, so that is, 20,000 times 10? 200,000? Am I right? Thank you. Okay, good. Nailed it. And he said to him, well done, good servant, because you've been faithful in very little. You were So in the eyes of the nobleman, 20,000 is little. You've been faithful with little. I'm going to make you have authority over 10 cities. Okay, let's connect the story together. God is not just about producing a kingdom of return and a slowing down of darkness. He's also preparing the bride of Jesus to reign with him in life, in authoritative stewardship over the earth after the earth is restored completely. Right, it says Romans 8, specifically is Romans 8, that what goes on, and again, this is Ephesians 1 as well, you're talking about a time in future when all things on the earth are set right, and after all the things are set right on the earth, it's not just Jesus sitting on a throne and making sure everything stays right. Those who have followed him are once delegated authority again. Just like he delegated in the beginning, and just like he's delegated it now, he delegates it again. He loves to give away authority. He loves to bring partnership. He loves for his bride to share in what he's doing. And so that's what it's talking about here. There's authority over 10 cities because the way that we engage in our life right now with faithfulness, with discipline, with thinking correctly, but also with spiritual faithfulness, doing what is also required to have a spiritual life of meaning, and we're going to get to that a little more in a minute, but doing both of those things, what we'll call stewardship and faith, not just stewardship, but stewardship and faith, produces the return and also prepares you for what you're going to be doing for all of future. And I want to say future history, but that doesn't make sense. For all of the kingdom to come when it comes in its fullness. That there is a life to be lived that's not just on a cloud with harps. There's a life to be lived that will also be just as real or perhaps more real, that will have struggle to overcome, that will have things to do, right? It's not just like, it's perfect, and right? It's not like an acid trip or something like that where you're like, right, heaven isn't that. You know what I mean? Where you're just like looking around and it feels awesome. Like it is a kingdom to come with meaningful things going on where the bride of Christ exercises authority over creation. Okay. We're moving along well. I'm sticking to the notes, sort of. So then Luke 19, verse 18. And the second one came saying, Lord, your mina has made 5 minas. And he said to him, perfect, you're to be over 5 cities. And then another came saying, Lord, here is your mina, which I kept laid away in a handkerchief. For I was afraid of you because you're a severe man. You take what you did not deposit. You reap what you did not sow. And he said to him, great, thanks for not losing any money. No, that's not what he said to him. No. What does he actually say to him? I will condemn you with your own words. I'll condemn you with your own words. Look, okay, here. So let me read them. Let me come back around. I'll condemn you with your own words, you wicked servant. You knew I was severe, taking what I didn't deposit, reaping what I didn't sow. Why didn't you just put money in the bank? And am I coming? I might have collected it with interest. And he said to those who stood by, take what he has, take that 1 mina from him, and give it to the one who has 10 minas. Why do that, right? Why? And they said to him, Lord, he's got 10 minas. Like, he's got enough. I tell you that everyone who has more will be given, but from the one who has not, what he has will be taken away. Okay, all right. Grab this with me for just a second. The reason this is stewardship and faith and not just stewardship is made kind of clear here as you see what happens to the third guy. The first guy goes through the faithful and the risky business of taking something that was given to him and putting it in a place where he did not know what was going to happen with it. Does that make sense? So there's a faithful act. There's an act of trust. There's an act that says there is a being involved. There's a creator involved that I can trust. And there's even an act in this parable. If I put this money to work and it doesn't work in the way that it should, I'm trusting that the nobleman's not going to kill me because I trust that that's a good nobleman. So he's making decisions based on his concept of who that nobleman is. That I can trust him as long as I do what he's invited me to do. It doesn't have to go perfect. It doesn't always have to go right. It doesn't have to have 100% investment returns, right? As long as it produces, that's an act of trust in the character of the nobleman. Well, this other guy says, like, I knew you were kind of a jerk and that I had to be perfect. And if I wasn't perfect, you were going to punish me. So what did I do? I didn't do anything with what you gave me. I wasn't willing to, express my trust in you by taking a risk. All right. So like my oldest son right now, 10 years old, been making like $10 a week-ish for mowing the grass. And then we watched a cartoon, this fun cartoon, and it was on Bitcoin, and he decided he wants to invest in Bitcoin, right? And so up to this point, he's only used the money in his account He's only used the money in his account to buy candy from the grocery store down the street because he'll want to ride his bike to the grocery store. It's like, he's feeling free and feeling fun. Ride his bike down there, get candy, and ride back. That's been the only use. And so we have him a bank account, and he can see it on my phone. So he can see money come in. He can see money leave. Occasionally, he'll buy a video game. But so just kind of letting him get a feel for it. Like, hey, man, stop asking me to buy you things. Like, I'll pay you, and then you buy your own stuff, and then just stop asking me about it. And then we watched this cartoon, this fun one on Bitcoin. And he's like, oh, wow. Are you saying that I could put $10 in Bitcoin and be a millionaire? And I was like, well, and I was like, yeah, I mean, you could definitely put it there and it'll be better than putting it in candy. So I was like, yes, absolutely, you'll be a millionaire, for sure. That's right, long enough, steady enough. And so we set up the account. He put his first $10 over, and then he looks at it, right? And this was the first time that he didn't have anything to show. He didn't have any candy, right? He felt like it was the greatest loss of his life. You know what I mean? And it dropped $1 that day. So it went from $10 to like $8.99, And so he's like looking at him on my phone, like he's looking at his crypto wallet and he's looking at his account and he's like, it's all gone, And I'm like, it's not gone. You've put it into a place you can't access, and you're hoping that it does something for you. So there's a risk. You feel the risk. You feel that, right? Like you feel the risk of it. You feel that you've put it somewhere. You don't have control, right? But we know for sure that if it stayed in here, because in that same cartoon it's talking about inflation and all this stuff, right? We're not going to that. Gosh, watch out. But let me say, he's taking part in an action that goes beyond his understanding and it goes beyond his control. Does that make sense? He's engaging in an action beyond his understanding and beyond his control. That money in his account is in his control. You see what I mean? Buy all the candy you want till it's empty. Outside of there, it's not in his control anymore. Do you realize that stewardship is being wise and disciplined with what is yours to control? Makes sense. You should be that. Faith is taking a step beyond that to make decisions out of trust in the Creator that you cannot control. Follow me for 1 second. It's an action, like I said, that goes beyond understanding, beyond control, and that is the expression of bowing the knee. Okay? You can confess with your mouth that Jesus is Lord and then never do anything that actually shows that He's Lord. So this is where it actually affects the physical world, and this is why He's so severe about it, because He wants your faith to affect the physical world. He doesn't want you to have an ethical system or a set of thoughts that are accurate. Who cares about that? What does He love? He loves His creation, and He wants His creation to flourish, and He wants it to be good. So people that are opposed to Him and opposed to what He's doing, He obviously needs to cut that off if He's good. He needs to come to a time and place where He's done with that, and He does away with all the things that are destructive to humans. That's what the coming kingdom is about, and that's what we look forward to. But He also wants a group of people that are willing to make a decision that's beyond their understanding and their control, so that the physical realm is affected by their faith. It's not just a faith that they carry, it's a faith that does something. It's a faith that takes the 20,000 and turns it to 200,000. It's a faith that actually moves things in the world because He's trying to move things in the world. That's what He's up to, right? So real simple. Gosh, hold on. It's like this, right? Right. So look, it's like this. Get out of here. Okay, so there's this thing, right? This is what it feels like. There's this action whenever you're talking to somebody who you don't even know who they are. Okay, we were at dinner the other night. Davis, you remember this? Yes, you did it. We were at dinner the other night. There's like 6 of us, and we're eating some like boiled crab at some place in Crystal Beach that was a little rowdy, and the waitress was having a rough night. And we're like a group of guys at a table, and we're just like talking, and we could tell that she was having a rough time. And so Davis takes it to the place of, hey, can we pray for you? And like immediately she's like, yeah, like I'd really like that. And you could hear her tearing up a little bit. And so Davis just starts to pray for her. And she starts sobbing at the table, right? And then she goes back in the back. It's just like some shady place in Crystal Beach, right? It's not like we're some night. We're in shady. So, and she tells everybody, like that group of guys. You know what she expects from a group of guys? You know what she's received from a group of guys, probably day in and day out for a long time? Not, hey, can I pray for you? Right? What she's probably received is either bad treatment or as if she doesn't really exist anyway. Or just maybe like kind of flirtatious behavior because she's a sexual object, right? Okay, but instead of all that, so there is an action that goes from I'm a Christian having dinner to I don't know how you're going to receive this, but I'm going to ask you if I can intercede for you with a God who loves you. And as he prays, she starts sobbing, right? And she goes back and tells the back that like that group of guys like prayed for me. It was like it just hit me in a way that was so meaningful. Do you know what I mean? And she was so grateful. There's an action there that's just an action of trust. There is the verbalization of worship that is bowing the knee. When your life is going like garbage, like it's not going well, and instead of going to the place of victimhood or going to the place of anger or going to all the places that you can go when it's just not going well, or that you've had a bad past. There's so many places you can go with a bad past that's just like, well, screw you, God. You didn't do what I expect. You didn't do what I want. All right, like you can go to that place, right? You can take your money and you can hide it in a handkerchief, and then you can try to make good decisions with your life to make it better, or you can do an act of faith and trust that doesn't feel like it's going to do anything. Verbally singing worship, verbally singing songs, what's that going to do? What's it going to do? Verbally singing songs of worship whenever things are falling apart is an expression where you can't control God and you can't trust Him, but you are saying, you're Lord, and no matter what happens here, I'm going to follow you and I'm going to trust you. And so you're making a deposit of faith. It's an action of faith. It's a continual bowing of the knee. It's not just a belief that God exists. It's an action that's rooted in Him actually being real. And when you do things as if He's actually real, then He moves, and He moves in your life, and then He moves outside of your life, right? The last book in the Old Testament, Haggai, it's God writing to His people, and He's like, what are you doing? What are you doing? They were bringing to the sacrificial altar all of their cull animals, their blind animals, the ones the worst of their stuff. Do you know what I mean? The worst of their stuff. And Torah law is you bring the best, because the best is an act towards a spiritual being saying, hey, I know, I like you're a spiritual being, so like, and you're not even going to eat this, so it doesn't matter if it's blind or not blind, like if you think about the practicality of it, but the action of it that's beyond understanding and beyond control says, I'm going to give you the best because I actually trust that you'll be good on your promises, right? That you'll actually do what you say you're going to do. So there is an actual difference in the submission to Jesus. There's an actual difference from taking the first of what you receive and giving it and saying, okay, I trust you with it, and then between that and seeing what's left over at the end and then giving from the leftovers. Does that make sense? There is an actual difference. And the actual difference is, it is the bowing of the knee. It is the way that we actually like move forward the kingdom of God. These little bitty things that we do they're rooted in things that we don't understand and we can't control. And so there's an invitation for us to live a sort of life that is not just being disciplined. Now hear me on this. There is a lot of Christianity that does a lot of dumb things, calling it not understanding and not controlling, calling it faith, and it's just a lack of wisdom. So I get that, right? But there are things prescribed by Jesus in the New Testament that are both of those things together, and that's how we walk. If we're going to be followers of Jesus, not just American Christians, right? Followers of Jesus who are doing things that are beyond our understanding and beyond our control while being responsible with the things that we've been given to be responsible with. There should be discipline there. There should be like good decision making there. There should be things that you're also doing beyond your understanding, beyond your control, on a regular basis that are the expression of Him actually being good. Waking up a little early so that there's time spent verbalizing prayer to a spiritual being who has promised to respond to your prayers. Do you realize that prayer sometimes can feel like talking to the ceiling? Do you realize that there are things done in secret that He rewards because it's your spiritual life that is moving the ball along, not just your stewardship. Not just your stewardship. So, oh gosh, I did good too. And then he says this last thing. But as for these enemies of mine who don't want me to reign over them, this is why I would have rather read from Matthew. As for these enemies of mine who didn't want me to reign over them, bring them here and slaughter them before me. Whew. I was just almost tempted to not go there today. So isn't that hard? As for these enemies of mine who didn't want me to reign over them, bring them here and slaughter them before me. Just for a second, just like engage with it for me. What is Jesus up to in the world? He's trying to make it right. You know all the stuff the stuff that sucks? You know all the stuff that sucks? Or the stuff that's painful? Or the stuff that's like just terrible? The stuff that's evil? The stuff that makes life not worth living? He's doing away with it. That's what he's up to. He's not punishing bad, rewarding good. There's the justice of God going on there. But the ultimate function is to do away with everything that corrupts this physical world. So do you see when he says his enemies, he's not just like mad that they're opposed to him. It's not it. It's the reality that being opposed to him is being opposed to that. And there will come a time where he has to be done with those who are committed to evil on the earth. There comes a time where he does away with those who are committed to furthering darkness instead of healing darkness. The reason that he comes first as a lamb to be slaughtered, the reason that he allows himself to go to a cross and be crucified, the reason that he allows blood to flow from his side, the reason that he becomes a human being to begin with is to protect as many people as possible who do not want to be done away with. Because the reality of the question is, who would you rather rule over all of creation? Winston Churchill? He has good sayings. Would he die for you? For you. Donald Trump? Would he die for you? Kamala Harris, would she die for you? Like actually, like painfully, intentionally die for you? Like, who do you want to reign? Who do you want to rule? There is a being who made everything that you understand to be beautiful. He made everything that you understand to be beautiful. Everything that you understand to be good, everything that you understand to be wonderful and worthy and life, everything, he made it all. And everything that you understand to be wrong on this earth is the product of human decisions. It's the product of humans. And so the question is do you want a being who created everything that you understand to be good and also is willing to give his life for you? Do you want him in rulership? Or do you want something else in rulership over you? And so it's like a real legitimate question, right? Are you a citizen of this world, which is hatred towards Jesus? Or are you a steward made son? And then in reality, are you a faith-filled steward who actually does things in your life as if God exists? Or are you the fearful steward who it may not feel like fear to you, but that's just what it is, a life lived trying to make all your own ends meet, trying to be wise, trying to do the right thing, trying to hedge your bets, but there's no expression on a daily basis that you actually follow the King of Heaven, who is curing and healing everything on this earth. Because it looks like those are the only 3 characters in the book. And you can slice it up a lot of different ways, but that's all you got. That's all you got. I don't want to let sermons like this just kind of come to a crashing end, but I also want to just honor the workers that are working in the kids ministry. So if you would, I do want to worship. I think it's just a thing that we do that's like an expression of honoring Him. So if you would, I want to pray, but I want to worship for a minute. And as we worship, if there's something that you need to do with and for the Lord, like if you need to bring yourself to a place of bowing the knee, it's a kind of old school thing, and it's a thing we don't always do here, but this is an altar that is for that. There is an expression of bowing the knee towards Him that's pretty valuable and important. If you haven't bowed the knee to Jesus and you're like, I'd like to do that, there's going to be a prayer team up here. That's really helpful and good to do that as someone leads you, because there's things that get tied in that can be undone by somebody who's kind of like knows what that looks like. And if you've got neither of those things, I just invite you to worship Him, through song, because it's a really valuable, really beautiful thing that we get to do. So if you'd stand real quick, I want to invite Holy Spirit to speak to us in whatever way He wants to. Holy Spirit, we invite you now for each one of us. We've made you, Lord, in different respects and in different ways and at different times, and we've walked different lives since that moment. And maybe some of us that have never done that before. But we are letting you know that if there's anything that you have for us, anything that you would guide us in and that you would lead us in, if there's anything at all, we want to be called good and faithful. And so we invite your leadership in our lives right now. Jesus, we invite your presence right now. You're a comforter. You're a healer. Even in your severity, there's kindness in it. We want the life that you've promised. And so we invite you to speak. In Jesus' name.